The Golden State Warriors are currently the #1 seed in the Western Conference as they have started the season 7-1. They just got a very massive win against the Boston Celtics, who to this point have only lost one other game. They have a top 3 defense and offense in the NBA, and a lot of their key acquisitions from the offseason have really paid off. So the question that I have in today's video is this just a hot start? Is this just a matter of a couple of players are really outperforming what they're going to throughout the season, and we're going to see them slowly turn back to the Warriors we knew them to be from the past couple of years? Or have the Warriors returned to form like they did in 2022, and another championship could potentially be around the corner? Let's talk about it. Hello everybody, welcome to Also Rusty Buckets. If you have not already, subscribe to the channel and drop a like on the video to help it do better on the algorithm. And if you want to enjoy this as an audio-only experience, check us out over on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. An important piece of context for this Celtics game that's going to be the primary basis of my commentary here: there was no Jaylen Brown, and the Celtics decided to start their third string center. I don't remember how to pronounce his first name, but his last name is Keita. He's actually a pretty damn good player, and it's pretty ridiculous that Boston has such a good center as their backup. He honestly might be a little bit better than Luke Cornett if you ask me. But that aside, he started at the 5 spot and they put Al Horford at the 4. Me personally, I probably would have opted to start Sam Hauser in Jaylen Brown's place, but Keita actually had a fantastic game, so bear that in mind. With that said, I want to do, and I'm probably going to do something like this for the foreseeable future when I'm doing these post-game recaps, as well as just talking about these teams in general. I want to go through and look at some clips. Some of them are actually going to be highlighting the Celtics, but for the most part, this video is focused on the Warriors. There's just some stuff the Celtics did that I found interesting. So I don't really have some complex basis for why I picked the clips that I did. This was just stuff that was interesting to me and stuff that I felt was important to highlight as it relates to Golden State's season. This play right here, I wanted to highlight because it's a perfect example of gravity, and particularly Steph's gravity, who Steph is the #1 player we talk about when we talk about gravity. But he gets this down screen here from Gary Payton, and you'll notice that both Al Horford as well as Peyton Pritchard are just going to miscommunicate. Both attack here on this screen, and that leaves Gary Payton wide open for the slip. They're both so petrified of the idea of a Steph Curry 3 that they're going to give up the most easy 2 points you possibly could. This is just a and 1-3 from Jason Tatum. It was sick. That's the only reason I really highlighted it. Kuminga kind of let him get around that screen a little bit too easily. And speaking of Kuminga, I wanted to highlight, he's probably kind of the odd man out for the Golden State Warriors. Unfortunately, he doesn't really fit what they're currently doing right now because he's not some super strong defender and not a super strong three-point shooter. While he does provide some level of scoring creation, he probably is a miscast in that role at many points, especially because in these minutes that I'm highlighting here, he was playing without Steph, and he ends up being most of their offense, him and Buddy Hield, and he's their primary creator. Pull up three-pointer over Drew Holiday, not the worst shot in the world, but it's definitely not great. Here, this is also not terrible, but he does not find the angle on the reverse, and then this shot is actually an awful shot. If he could have faded left shoulder, might have been decent, but he just went right into the Luke Cornett contest. I don't hate the idea of trying to take advantage of that mismatch, but that was just a poor way of doing it. I also wanted to highlight, he's not a super strong defender. Here, he really gets burned by Peyton Pritchard, of all people, on a one-on-one matchup. And this play came later in the fourth quarter. Catch and shoot fadeaway baseline, hits the corner of the backboard. That is ugly. So yeah, I don't know what it actually means. He's playing about 23 minutes a game for the Warriors right now. I don't know what his future there looks like. This play here, I wanted to highlight Keita. He finished with 14 points. He just mostly put back layups, dunks, couple alley-oops, had a really nice poster on Kevon Looney. But a big impact was defensively, where he was protecting the rim super well. This play here, I wanted to highlight some great Steph off-ball movement. Here, it almost looks like, with the way that Looney is coming around here, it looks like he's setting a pin down for Looney, potentially to set a screen for Gary Payton, but he's kind of just shading this way. It's funny. A way I would describe Steph's off-ball ability, you know that look that LeBron does on his pull-up three-pointers? I feel like Steph does that with his off-ball stuff all the time, where he just kind of looks at an area of the floor like he's distracted or something, and then suddenly just makes a quick burst to get an open look. So you'll see on this play here, he's just walking, and then, oh, I'm turning, and then Looney, who was running around almost like he was about to come off of a screen. Now he is setting a quick screen. Derek White reacts to this quickly, but not quickly enough because he's now tripping. So this is basically an open shot, and Peyton Pritchard swipes the leg and he gets 3 free throws out of it. So a really cool off-ball sequence from Steph here where it looks almost like a fake screen that turns into a screen with a different player. It looks like they're doing inverted pick and roll and they just do regular screen action. I really like that play a lot, so I wanted to highlight it. Andrew Wiggins, I'm going to talk about him further, but the step back mid-range shot, this was late in the fourth quarter, a super clutch shot. Steph Curry, again, off-ball movement. He has Wiggins here, and Drew Holiday is naturally expecting a down screen to get Steph wide open. So he commits when Steph looks like he's going that way with the quick jab, like he's all the way left in the dust here, and Draymond is able to find him backdoor for an easy layup. This right here, another Tatum play, Tatum and one that I wanted to highlight. Like, that's some like Kobe shit right there. Obviously, he would love to hear that. But the pump fake, loses healed, step through, takes the short shot, gets fouled and one, and it rattles in. I just wanted to highlight that because it was a cool play. Unfortunately, I have to give him that because right here, I'm going to immediately point out a very bad defensive possession on his part that you could argue cost them the game because this three-pointer was kind of the one that put them away here. Steph driving inside. He is ball watching. He is focused on Steph. And maybe if he helped on the drive, I could give him a little bit of a benefit of the doubt of like, yeah, maybe he shouldn't have committed, but at least he was committing to something. But no, he's just standing there watching, and then suddenly Buddy Hield wide open from three. And that's pretty much the game. So what exactly did I learn about the Warriors in this game? This is the third Warriors game I've watched this season. I've watched all the ones with Steph in it. They have actually gone 3-0 in games without him, which is really, really interesting. The main thing to me was that their defense was fucking phenomenal. Now, obviously, Boston is dealing with a level of spacing that they're not used to. So far this year, with no Porzingis and Al Horford in the starting lineup, even with that, the only time that the Celtics have had to deal with a non-shooter being on the floor at any point is when Luke Kornet gets in the game. Other than that, there's never a non-shooter on the floor. Even if Al Horford can sometimes be wishy-washy as a three-point shooter, they've all got dudes who are going to hit that shot, and it's not too much of a concern for them. But Al Horford at the 4 is much less impactful as a spacer than Al Horford at the 5 is, and then Keita is a non-spacer. So that mucks up their spacing, not to mention there's, of course, no Jaylen Brown, which ruins a lot of their secondary shot creation. This was in large part made up by Derek White, who had a fantastic game, and just to quickly highlight it, Derek White is having a remarkable season right now. He's averaging just under 20 points per game. He's shooting 10 threes a game on like 43%. That all-star bid that we were talking about with him last year, I think that's actually going to come to fruition this year as long as this maintains itself, because he has been lights out. But to get back to the Warriors, their defense this whole game was amazing. They held them to just the Celtics to just 40 points in the first half. Second half, it was a little different. I think in total it was 53. The Warriors offense also improved though to make up for the fact that the defense wasn't quite as substantial in the second half. But as of right now, they are second in the NBA in defensive rating. Their opponent three-point percentage is bottom of the league at 30%. Now, that is low enough that it does worry me a little bit that, you know, no team in the league is going to hold their opponents to 30% from three. That percentage is going to increase. And when you look at how good their three-point shooting has been, in particular Buddy Hield, that number is also going to decrease. So to be a little bit, you know, safe about the Warriors, there is a decent chance there is a degree of shooting variance that has been affecting their season early. But the defensive effort and energy is very clear there, and I think that's why it's resulted in this low three-point number, not just simply teams not hitting their threes. They defended the perimeter super well in this Celtics game, were really good at chasing dudes off of the line, and yeah, just excellent at that. They're also second in two-point percentage, opponents' two-point percentage, so they are locking up inside the arc almost as well as they are locking up outside the arc. They are also first in rebounding, which is huge, specifically defensive rebounds and total rebounds, while they are third in offensive rebounds, which provides a lot of secondary opportunities on the offensive end of the floor. They don't foul too much. They're getting as many free throws as they are giving up. And they are also, and this is huge for their offense, and I think this has been one of the bigger reasons for their success, and not just the three-point shooting, they are 21st in turnovers, which that has been a huge problem for them. Now, historically, the Warriors have actually been a fairly high turnover team just because they play a very high pace, and with that, you're naturally going to get more turnovers because you're kind of going to get more of a little bit of everything. You're passing the ball more, you're taking riskier passes more frequently. That's just the nature of things. However, that was made up for in many ways with other aspects of the game. This lockdown defense, their ridiculous shooting, that would allow them to still ultimately be super dominant. Turnovers are not something that you necessarily have to rank highly in the league in terms of not giving them up to be a good NBA team, but with the fact that a lot of those other aspects of Warriors ball that has allowed them to be so good in the past has been slipping, you want to make up for that by, hey, maybe we shouldn't be so fucking bad with turnovers anymore. And 21st in the league is really good. They have handled the ball well. They're not making dumb decisions. They're not forcing a lot of passes. So they're 21st in turnovers right now. Last year, they were had the 8th most turnovers in the entire NBA. Now they're at 21st. Hopefully that maintains itself because that is also a big reason. So a lot of the reason that they've been winning is in the little things. They're rebounding well. They're playing strong defense. Strong defense isn't the little things. We know what I'm saying. And they're not turning the ball over. That is all excellent, excellent stuff that is going to help you win on the margins. Not the flashiest or sexiest way of winning games, but ones that are ultimately effective. So let's get to the offense. First things first, I want to highlight Buddy Hield because he has looked fucking nuts. Like, way too good to a degree that's like, yeah, this is not going to hold up. I have been saying forever now that Buddy Hield is one of the best shooters who has ever touched a basketball. And a lot of people react to that in a weird way that I think stems from the fact that he's not a star player, and sometimes he's not even a very good player. But the reality is with Buddy Hield, I feel like he just put almost all of his attributes into three-point shooting specifically, and his overall game kind of pulls away from the attention that would exist for his three-point shooting otherwise. But the dude has some of the most made threes over the span since his career has started. I believe he would be top 10 in three-point makes since he was drafted. I believe he was like second once over a full year, something like that. Dude just shoots the piss out of the ball, and it only makes sense that he would do it well in Golden State. If there was ever a knock that you would give to like Klay Thompson, for example, for the past couple of years in Golden State to say, maybe he was a little bit overrated as a shooter. I remember I had a conversation with Alex Hoops a long time ago because I used to maintain the position that Klay Thompson was the second greatest shooter ever and the top two greatest shooters ever were playing on the same team. Alex kind of convinced me that Ray Allen was a better shooter than Klay Thompson contextually. And a lot of that is because the gravity of Steph Curry, the fact that you somehow, despite your level of shooting talent, will never be what is the defense's number one priority to defend as a shooter, it opens up a lot of opportunities for you. And Buddy Hield has found himself wide the fuck open in multiple instances because of the gravity of Stephen Curry. And to me, it seemed like destiny that he would wear this Warriors jersey. You know, in many ways, he is supposed to be this Klay Thompson replacement, just as this movement shooter, you know, an option that they can look to on offense. In an ideal world, he does not take a bunch of bad shots the same way that Klay Thompson doesn't pout about not getting as many shots as he would like Klay Thompson does. And yeah, he's done that exactly, and he's done that perfectly. Now, his shooting is not going to hold up to the degree that it has, and I don't think he's going to continue to be a 20-point per game scorer. But for him to take a leap, for him to be a super, super valuable player to this team, especially on the offensive end of the floor, I think that is very, very plausible. It would not shock me if Buddy Hield was like a 15 to 18 point per game scorer throughout the entire season, shot the hell out of the ball, and did a lot to help their spacing, which of course is a staple of the Warriors historically. Andrew Wiggins has looked back to form. He is shooting 40% from 3 on 5 attempts per game, providing some secondary shot creation, as I highlighted with that step back midi over Tatum Tatum towards the end of the fourth quarter in that game. Like, he does not need to be all-star starter Andrew Wiggins, but if he can hit his threes, be a really strong defender, and he had a lot of really good defensive moments against Andrew Wiggins in this game, not Andrew Wiggins, he is Andrew Wiggins, against Jason Tatum in this game, then he can be super, super valuable. He's only averaging 15, 16 points per game. That's fine, okay? I don't need 20. I don't need 19 on like hyper excellent efficiency. Just be an excellent 3-and-D player who can provide some shot creation when necessary. That is his bread and butter, and it looks like he's more of his older self there. Speaking of that, Draymond Green has been playing defense without punching people, and that is huge. That really allows them to go super far when he's just not being a distraction and simply focusing his energy on the defensive end. Now, he has had some controversial comments in the media, talking about, like, they're talking about Victor and Chet, don't forget about Draymond Green. I don't necessarily think he's wrong to be like, hey, I'm still one of the best defenders in the NBA and I'm leading one of the best defenses. Maybe give me credit for that. I understand where that's coming from, but also you're Draymond Green. Shut up. Kuminga, probably the odd man out, and we might be looking at him similarly to how we did Dennis Schroeder when he passed up that bag from the Lakers. I don't know if he's going to get the money that the Warriors were originally offering him earlier in this offseason because he wanted to make like $40+ million a year. He might end up getting substantially less than what the Warriors were going to give him because he really does not seem to fit right now, because he's not an excellent shooter, he's not an excellent defender, he's a good play finisher, but he's honestly not all that excellent as a shot creator to the degree that you want to be looking at him to do that as much as they have been. You know, he can put the ball in the basket at times, but is your offense actually going to look good with him leading it? The answer is no. For the most part, the answer is no. Though I did highlight pretty much just his lowlights in that game, I will point out he actually did have some good moments in terms of his individual scoring in the third quarter. However, while that was happening, Steph Curry was sitting on the bench, and the Celtics went on a run and closed a 14-point lead that the Warriors had. Obviously, they still recovered and won that, but, you know, the moment the offense was led by Kuminga, shit turned bad. Now, obviously, I'm not expecting you to be as impactful as Stephen Curry offensively. That's a pretty fucking high ask. You at least want to look manageable or survivable in that context, and that just was not the case. He was very bad in most of the minutes where he was the lead man on offense, and I just don't know if they have much reason for him at this point. Obviously, you want to have something to go to when Steph's not on the floor, but I'd probably want a different archetype of player being the one making those decisions, probably a playmaker of some kind, which is another thing that he's not really doing all that much as a ball handler. So yeah, I'm worried about Kuminga. None of the things I just said are to say that he is a bad NBA player or that he does not have a strong future in the NBA. I just do wonder what his future looks like on this Warriors team, especially if Draymond Green is still around, because you really can't play him and Draymond together for prolonged minutes unless Draymond is at the 5. And if Andrew Wiggins is really good, well, then you don't want to start him, even especially then because you have Andrew Wiggins who's really good. So it's kind of an odd man out situation, and I feel like the Warriors should just cash in on him as an asset while they can. Obviously, he's going to be a free agent soon, and because whoever trades for him is going to have to pay for him, that is going to mitigate his value a little bit. But I don't know. I feel like both parties could be better off with a divorce here. It's not always a bad thing. Sometimes divorce is a good thing. Your parents probably should get divorced, to be honest. If they haven't, they might hate each other. That's a tangent. Cut that out. That's mean. There's enough sadness going on in the world right now. Excellent execution in the fourth quarter in this game. I think that the Warriors did a great job of taking advantage of some of the defensive lapses that the Celtics make. Defensive lapses are not all too common for Boston, so if you don't take advantage of them when they happen, you're going to find yourself struggling to score. But there was that Curry backdoor layup where he faked out Drew Holiday that I played you earlier. There was that moment where he got Derek White to not pay attention for 1 second and he got fouled on the three-pointer. And then there was that Buddy Hield corner 3 where Jason Tatum was ball watching watching and just let Buddy Hield get a wide open catch and shoot. So they executed well on that. Steph Curry was clutch. He's had 10 points. He did go 3 for 8, but I thought he was doing a great job of putting pressure on the defense, and they were collapsing on him hard, which opened up other opportunities for his teammates. I am a little bit worried. I do one last thing. Also, 2 putback layups from Kevon Looney, so shout out to him for that. I am a little bit worried about this offense maintaining itself because the defense being good isn't actually necessarily that shocking. They have had the personnel to be a strong defense and just kind of not been for the past 2 years, which has been disappointing. They've still been pretty good, just not the Warriors' dominant defense we've known of the past. Part of that because Draymond Green has missed some time. Andrew Wiggins especially has missed some time, but I think that can maintain itself. If you tell me the Warriors end up being a top 3 defense in the NBA by the end of the season, that does not shock me at all. If you told me they end up finishing as a top 3 offense, I would be a little bit surprised by that. Now, I have been saying forever, and most people have at this point, that the biggest issue for the Warriors is they don't really have a secondary creator after Stephen Curry. However, if I was going to spin this positively, if I was going to say, what is the version of this that does work, I would say that Wiggins, Hield, Moody, and even Kuminga a little bit, if they can continue to score at a high enough volume collectively, it might not end up mattering that they don't have a definitive second option. Some nights it might be Buddy Hield, some nights it might be Andrew. Also, I do want to highlight Moses Moody real quick because I don't know what the fuck is wrong with Steve Kerr, but this guy balls the fuck out every time he touches the ball. He's playing 17 minutes right now, and he is averaging 10 points. He is shooting 51% from the field, 48% from 3. This is over 8 games, and he's just not playing. He's at 68% true shooting, and if we adjusted his minutes to per 36, which is a flawed stat, but just shows you the idea of what happens when a player gets real minutes, he gets up to 22 points per game. That's the level of scoring volume he is producing right now, and I feel like he should play more. I especially think he should play more than Kuminga and Kyle Anderson. Kyle Anderson actually hit 3 straight threes in this game, which is fucking bananas. I also want to highlight Trace Jackson-Davis has also been super good. He's scoring 9 points and grabbing 4.5 boards in 18 minutes a game, so he's actually been a pretty good offensive option as a roller to the rim, a little bit of a float game as well. And while we're on the subject of per 36 averages, last year they had 3 players who per 36 average 20 points per game. Like that, if you give them 36 minutes, theoretically at least, they score 20. Those players were Steph, Andrew Wiggins, and Klay Thompson. Obviously, Klay Thompson is no longer on this team, so you got to remove him from this potential equation. However, this year, they have 5 players who are averaging 20 plus per 36, and it would be 6 if you count Pat Spencer, who has played 3 games and scored at a high volume in the few minutes that he has played. But I probably wouldn't, just because that's a really small sample size. But you have multiple dudes, Moody, Wiggins, Kuminga, Steph, and Buddy Hield, who are all 20 plus point per game scorers with starting minutes, and that is massive. The fact that there are this many dudes who are capable of high volume scoring, relative at least to what they had last year, which was 3 versus 5, losing one of your main options, so you've got 4 guys moving up the fold there. That is excellent shit. My favorite thing about this game and the Warriors season thus far is Steph Curry hasn't been great. This was probably his best game thus far, as he had 27 points on 17 shots, 10 in the fourth quarter, 9 assists. But for Steph Curry, that's a okay game, like 27-9 on okay efficiency. Good job, Steph. That's a pretty typical Steph game. Not to undersell the level of impact of that, but all I'm saying is the dude does not have to ball out to get a win. And through the 5 games that he has played, he is averaging 22 on not the best efficiency at the moment. He's only played in 5 of their 8 games, and their only loss was against the Clippers in a game that he played. They are 3-0 in games without him, and that shit is nuts. This is what I've been saying Golden State needs to dominate this whole time. In 2022, they didn't necessarily have some litany of scoring options. You had Klay, who was super inconsistent, and Andrew Wiggins, who was like a 17, 18 point per game guy. Otherwise, it was Steph, but the offense holistically had a bunch of guys who could do the right thing, make the right decision, and score effectively enough without being quote-unquote scorers. That's what you need. Obviously, I made this new main channel video recently called The Wilt Paradox, where I was talking about usage. The fact that Steph does not have to do too much and they still win is very key to winning a championship, to being a true contender. Now, as for my final statement, or my final declaration as to, is this team legit or not, or is this a hot start? I would say I still feel as though the OKC Thunder and the Dallas Mavericks are the two strongest favorites to come out of the Western Conference right now. However, who is number 3 is very up in the air. Denver's been kind of weird. They did just get a win against OKC, and I do feel like there has been some overreactions towards them, but they're not that great. The Timberwolves with Julius Randle have looked pretty The Phoenix Suns look excellent, but I do think you could convince me this Warriors team ends up being better, even if they're less talented up top. I would say this is a legit dramatic improvement to the point where the Warriors could legitimately be in the contender category. I don't think I'm going to say they're finishing as the first seed and a favorite coming out of the West, but a team that could come out of the West. From what we're seeing thus far, if it even maintains 80% of what it is right now, I will say yes, the Warriors can be a true contender in the Western Conference, and I honestly did not predict that happening. A little behind the scenes shit, I'm actually doing a Warriors My League right now. I have decided, because I am tired of releasing My League series and then not finishing them, that I'm literally going to just record the entire thing before I release a single episode. We tanked the first season. We intentionally were not very good because I wanted to do something in the offseason. You'll figure out what that is, but I was like that confident that this Warriors team just was not even worth bothering with the idea of them being competitive. But here we are, and not only are they competitive, they look like they could be one of the best teams in the NBA. And as a Steph Curry fan and one who has been very annoyed by how the Warriors have operated over the last 2 seasons, I could not be more thrilled. So shout out to the Dubs, shout out to Buddy Hield for being a fucking bucket. But yeah, that's it. Also, shout out to Nick for editing this video, and goodbye.